you hear that?
Yeah, I heard.
It sounded like I got a pat.
So today we're going to talk about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We've already seen the first episode, and we've already can kind of point to a few comics that it looked to be inspiring it, and some little Easter eggs we found in the series. I enjoyed it. We've only seen one episode so far, but it felt a lot more like a Marvel show you'd expect a Marvel show to be, where WandaVision was doing all this like crazy stuff and very different. So especially that opening sequence was, I think, some of the best action we've seen so far in the MCU. It's certainly showing a lot more of what Falcon's capable of. Like WandaVision before it, we're getting a lot more time with some of these secondary characters, which is a real pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I thought they did a pretty good job of kind of setting up what the show's going to be and what it's going to look like. And I'm excited to kind of see where the rest of it's going to go, even though it's only going to be 6 episodes. Every show, every movie, they're going to tweak or redo the characters' costumes a little bit. So we do see Falcon in a new suit in this show. The further along we go into the MCU, the more comic accurate it seems that the costumes become. So this is probably the closest we've had to the kind of classic Falcon suit from the comics, or a version of it. And then we see more of Red Wing, which is cool. In the comics, Red Wing's like an actual bird Sam Wilson has a telepathic link with because of the Red Skull and the Cosmic Cube. In the MCU, they've changed it to make Redbird a drone that is a remote controlled drone, which I think is like brilliant in terms of making that concept from the comics work in, live action, real world. So at the end of the episode, the government essentially reveals that they've got a new Captain America. We see Sam Wilson's reaction to this. He's clearly not pleased. I would assume, as one half of the people entrusted with ensuring Captain America's legacy, Sam is going to go find the Winter Soldier so that the two of them can kind of put a stop to this. They're not going to want the government to choose the next Captain America, especially when it is disregarding Steve Rogers' last wishes. Captain America chose Sam to be the next Captain America. He chose not to fill those shoes, and that they shouldn't have a replacement for Captain America. This show might see Sam and Bucky go to stop this guy, John Walker, from being Captain America. He essentially would have no right to that shield when those two guys say no one should be the new Captain America. They should have the final say in that. And I think that's where the show's gonna go, is these two characters who don't really like each other working together to stop somebody else from assuming the mantle of their friend. We don't know much about John Walker yet. They've been very coy about showing us anything. The only thing we've really seen is the end scene of the first episode shows his reveal, and then the trailers have shown him at some kind of like sporting event. Kind of looks like he might be doing what the government initially wanted Captain America to do. In the first Captain America movie, we see Captain America's, he's the only super soldier, so instead of sending him off to fight in the war like they were gonna send an army of super soldiers to do before the scientist was killed that gave him the powers, Captain America was touring the country raising money for the war effort, doing the USO tours. It looks like John Walker's gonna fill that role, that he's kind of gonna be more of a person to go out and do public appearances versus an actual hero that's taking over the mantle. In the comics, he has a military background, he's a former soldier, but he lacks the character of Steve Rogers. So that might be all it takes for the US government to stick a soldier in the Captain America suit, is he's got training and he takes orders. We see other superpowered characters in the show running around, jumping, breaking out a window and like landing, and then a guy kicks another guy and the guy goes like flying. So it appears that they've either cracked the super soldier formula and are giving it to people, or if you watch the end credit scene, they have all this artwork and stuff in like the fancy credits, and they show the name Power Broker in the credits. In the comics, the Power Broker is a person, and it's sometimes an organization, but it's essentially superpowers for sale. So we might be seeing this show saying superpowers are now something that you can buy. If you're well connected or you have the money, you might be able to go and buy yourself some superpowers. It appears that that might be what the show is doing, is saying, look, that's the world we live in now. We live in a world where anyone with the right money or the right connections can now get superpowers. Steve Rogers does choose Falcon to be the next Captain America. In the movies, Falcon doesn't have any superpowers. In the comics, he has the ability to see through the eyes of birds, and he's kind of like Aquaman. Aquaman can control fish. Falcon can control birds. So It's telepathic control, and he has a special rapport with Red Wing in the comics where he can see what Red Wing sees. They're obviously not going to do that in the movie because it's a little silly. In terms of why Steve Rogers would choose Sam Wilson to be the next Captain America, it's the same reason why Steve Rogers was chosen to be Captain America versus any other Army guy that was in the program with him. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the fastest, it was the person he was. Being Captain America is more about the person you are versus what you're able to do. Steve Rogers was a small, frail, sickly kid that had a heart better than any of the other people in the program. He got this formula by the virtue of his character. Steve Rogers likewise saw in Sam Wilson a good person willing to do the right thing regardless of the consequences or who stood in his way. So it's more of the character of Sam Wilson that makes him worthy of being Captain America more than his physical abilities. So one of the characters that got introduced in the show, I didn't catch it the first time around. I'm really bad at hearing names. The United States Air Force handler that works with Sam Wilson, Joaquin Torres, is actually a character from the comics as well. In Nick Spencer's run on Captain America, which appears to be one of the primary influences for the show, Joaquin Torres actually becomes the second Falcon when Sam Wilson takes over as Captain America. He gets powers from a guy, I think his name's Dr. Mollis, and he's like a lunatic scientist in the old tradition of lunatic scientists that sees him combine animal DNA with human DNA. So Joaquin Torres gets his DNA mixed with Red Wing, the bird from the comics. Their DNA gets spliced together and he gets wings and big clawy feet like a bird and gets superpowers and the ability to communicate with birds much like the Falcon does. I don't know that we'll see that full transformation, though it's certainly possible. If they are introducing the Power Broker, that could be a character that gives this character superpowers. He seems to be very interested in the Avengers, very interested in Captain America. He has a lot of questions about Sam. He seems a bit shady. Maybe he'll have a twist or there's something might be coming up, but I wouldn't be surprised if this character gets some version of superpowers for to be his own character. So another part of Nick Spencer's run that's being adapted from the comics to the Falcon and Winter Soldier show is this idea that the United States government doesn't really want to not have control or not have a say over who gets to be the next Captain America. In the comic, a bunch of senators got together and decided to recruit John Walker, who in the comics was now known as U.S. Agent, and he's a government-sanctioned Captain America, essentially. He goes off and he's fighting in the Middle East. He's involved in a lot of the war on terror. They recruit him to basically, for a campaign that's going on, it's a hashtag, Take Back the Shield. And it's essentially a bunch of people in the country who aren't happy and don't want Sam Wilson to be Captain America. His politics are too far to the left. A lot of people are obviously going to disagree with some of the stands he takes in the comics. So these group of senators recruit John Walker and convince him to go get the shield and take it back from Sam Wilson. In the show, it's that same kind of idea. We see this senator, I'm not sure if he's a senator or somebody high up in the Department of Defense, but they basically convince Falcon to give the shield to them, and they say they're going to put it in the Smithsonian. We see Sam give a speech at the Smithsonian. He's talking about Captain America and Captain America's legacy. War Machine's there in the crowd. This senator, Defense Department officials there as well. And it looks like Sam wanted to give them the shield to hold on to, that it should be stored here, that nobody should be Captain America. They take it. They said thank you. They shake his hand. And then at the end of the episode, we see them immediately trot out their own version of Captain America. And it's that same kind of idea where they deceived him to get the shield back from him so that they could have a hand in selecting the next Captain America, so that this guy that doesn't really answer to anybody, isn't under any kind of government program, isn't going to be running around as Captain America. For the show going forward, I think the immediate next Captain America is John Walker. We saw him introduced in the last episode. He'll probably be the primary Captain America throughout the show, but by the end of the show, I'd expect either Bucky or Sam Wilson to be our new Captain America. I think either one of them would work really well to be Captain America. After watching that first episode and kind of seeing them flesh out the Sam Wilson character a bit more, I'm actually kind of hoping that Sam Wilson does become Captain America by the end of the show. Certainly if they're introducing Joaquin Torres as a potential character that could to become the next Falcon. We don't need two Falcons, so there would, I think, would be the best choice to be made, is make Sam Wilson, Captain America, and then introduce and give Joaquin Torres superpowers to be the new Falcon, to be his partner. So the shield's actually interesting because this is not the shield Captain America carried through all the movies. The shield Captain America had actually destroyed in Avengers Endgame. Thanos destroys the shield. He carves it in half with the giant sword thing he was swinging around. When Captain America returns at the end of Endgame, he gives a shield to Sam Wilson. This shield presumably comes from an alternate timeline. Captain America travels back in time to return the Infinity Stones back from where the Avengers grabbed them from. Presumably that shield came from one of the realities he went into to put the stones back. They haven't addressed any of the repercussions of Captain America's time travel adventures. That would actually probably make a phenomenal Disney Plus show, is just following Cap back through the timeline to see him return those stones. It'd be interesting just to see Captain America go to Asgard and figure out how to get the ether back into Jane Foster so that the events of Thor the Dark World play out in the correct way. Or have Cap go to Vormir to go return the Soul Stone, and he meets the fucking Red Skull, and it's like he's not going to be happy to find him there. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff they could and should do there, but apparently Chris Evans is done with the character, and they don't really want to dig that back up, so I doubt we'll ever see it. But any ramifications that came from that, I don't think we're going to see. They are doing a lot with what the world is like after the snap. There's a lot of talk from the characters in the show about what it was like during the 5 years during the snap and how kind of society collapsed around everybody. So they're playing with some interesting stuff there. Those are the ramifications I think that are most immediate that they have to deal with. We saw a lot of this in Spider-Man Far From Home. So it's nice to see that that's being continued in the Falcon and Winter Soldier story, because it's a major world event that literally touched every single person on the planet. So if you like this content and want to see more like it, feel free to subscribe below. If you want to follow me over on social media, you can find me on Instagram at @TheBraveButterPecan. If you're looking for more content like this, I co-host a weekly podcast called Caffeinated Comics. You can find anywhere you find your podcasts. If you're interested in any of the titles we've mentioned during this episode, I'd encourage you to support your local comic book store. If you don't know where your local comic book store is, you can go to comicshoplocator.com, type in your zip code, and they'll show you the nearest store.